Hello, my name is Dakota Barber. I am 24 years old and a senior at Jacksonville State University. I've been going to Jacksonville since 2014. I graduated from high school at Victory Christian School in Pell City in 2014. And like I mentioned, I've been going to Jacksonville since August of 2014. I switched around majors a little bit. I first started in physical therapy and then switched to history, psychology, but then I ultimately decided to be an English major. Not going to teach. I'm looking at going into something along the lines of journalism and along that kind of deal because I like writing and all of that sort of stuff and just love reading literature. And that's just it. Literature to me is just so important, and it makes you smarter, teaches you new words, and just helps you with just become smarter and to just learn grammar and learn a bunch of new stories and to read new stories. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm supposed to graduate in December of 2019, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Today, I'm going to be discussing the poem Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. It's real short and sweet, but it's very good. And the three morphology terms that I'm going to be talking about are grammatical homonym, generalization, and specialization. So, in regards to grammatical homonyms in Fire and Ice, both fire and ice are obviously things you're going to be talking about a lot in the poem. Fire and ice, both, and this is going to be kind of repeated with all three of these words because there's only so much you can really talk about within the poem. There's nothing really differential, but with grammatical homonym, for example, in relates to fire, in the real life sense, we think of fire as in when we have a bonfire, perhaps, and fire in that sense is used as a sort of kinship kind of thing where you get some friends together, you roast marshmallows, roast some hot dogs, all that kind of stuff, and it's a real light bonding kind of thing where not only that, you sit by a nice warm fire, catch up, enjoy some time. However, there's another meaning to fire as well, and that can be used as more of a destructive means, and especially in the context of the poem, fire is used as something that's going to bring about destruction, but we'll get more into that into the last term. And with ice, in real life, we tend to think of like along the lines of perhaps maybe an icy road. You know, if the roads, I've got a little picture here, like icy roads. That's what we think of. Like if it's snowed, or if our car's frosted and we need to defrost it, and there might be ice. And again, ice on the roads is what we mainly think of. So that's the context that I would use in real life. What we tend to think of ice as, but also in the context of the poem, similar to how fire is used. It's used more of in terms of a destructive means, and not to get too ahead of what the last morphology word will go into, but that's along more of the lines of hatred when you're real icy. But again, we'll get into that in a bit. The next word that we're going to be looking at in this context of fire and ice is generalization. So the literal sense, and again, we kind of touched on that very briefly in grammatical homonyms. So the literal sense regarding fire and ice in the poem would be, again, that they cause destruction. Fire would cause someone or something to feel both heat and light because it's obviously warm. However, fire can also cause intense burning and pain. So if you reach out and touch fire, guess what? You're going to get burned, and it's going to hurt a lot. In regards to ice, similarly to fire, it gives you a sensation, obviously not a warm sensation. It's going to give you a colder sensation and make you freeze up and maybe clench up like this. It's going to make you want to get to someplace warm, like inside or around a fire. So in the context of the poem, when someone is around ice, for example, in a blizzard, it can cause hazardous situations to occur. So here's where we're really going to get into the meat of the morphology terms. And this one I think has more of the stuff that you can kind of dig into, and that's specialization. And how I'm going to use specialization in this case is in a figurative manner. The others have kind of been more or less in a, firstly with the real life kind of thing and how the words are differentiated and how they can have different meanings. And then with generalization, it's just a general thing of what we sort of can kind of tend to think of those words. With specialization, Frost uses fire as a figurative meaning for someone's desire. And he's very careful to show how we need to be wary of our feelings. And in this poem takes a very personal application to someone's life when you really start to look and dig deep into what he's really saying. Fire can also cause burning emotions for someone to feel. So if you feel intense, got a little graph here, desire for somebody or something, it's going to consume you. You're going to find yourself thinking about it all the time. You're going to find yourself going to whatever ends you can to get the thing you desire. And along the way, if you're not careful, you may find yourself hurting whatever and whomever, probably especially yourself, to get that thing you most desire. And in terms of ice in the poem and how it's used, it's sort of figurative / symbolic for hatred. And similar to how fire and desire can be kind of paired together, ice can be associated with the feeling of hatred, because hatred, and I pair hatred and bitterness together because to me they're one and the same, brothers, if you will. Hatred can make you become a very icy and cold human being, and that's cliche to say because we hear that all the time. Oh, they're so cold, but really it can. If you find yourself getting bitter at somebody because they've done you wrong, maybe you've had a significant other that's broken up with you, cheated on you, whatever, you can find yourself getting bitter and angry at that person, and then if you don't kind of come to terms and deal with those feelings, you can become icy and bitter and cold and hatred towards everyone, the world, yourself. You can close yourself off, and Frost really warns against both of those things because they're very human feelings that you can feel if you're not careful, if you just let your emotions get the best of you. And that's easier said than done. It's very hard to control your emotions when you're in the moment, but I think this poem does a really good job of kind of getting you to think about, are these emotions that I'm feeling now? I've obviously felt them in my life before, but am I feeling them now? So, in conclusion, with the three terms, grammatical homonym is when you sort of try to... Oh, crap. Should have had the term over here by me. Oh, where did they go? Where did they go? Oh, where did I... But anyway, I was trying to find the definition since this is a practice video, but in conclusion, I think that this poem is, while short, it is something that is very... probably essential reading for everybody to take a look at and see why Robert Frost was one of the great poems, because he really digs in really deep on a personal level when you think, oh, it might just have to do with nature or a battle or whatever. But if you really take a look at all of his poems, especially this one, you can find that, hey, this is really a lot more personal, and he's really digging at something that's very psychological and human here with these. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a good one.